Right. Okay. We're on record now, so we'll see how it goes and
Turn it up a bit, Carl. It's soft.
turn it up a bit.
You're
Yeah,
very quiet.
no good.
I'm very quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's
Yes,
that?
when you move away from your microphone, Carl, I don't know what device you're using, but when you tilt back, you tend to your speakers might be or your microphone might be picking up if you're on a telephone or you're on a mobile or you're on a tablet.
I was using Wi-Fi. I was using a Wi-Fi connection last week, but obviously I've not got that on this week.
Oh, that's a shame. You are very quiet.
Am I very quiet?
It's
Yeah.
the device, it is. So.
All right. Okay. Right. Let's just see what I can do about that a minute.
Turn it up, lad.
So you can't hear me much at all.
Getting quieter.
I'd give you a 5 out of 10, Carl.
Oh, great. All right. All my images are on here. So if I transfer, I gotta, yeah. So let's just see if I can do something.
Oh, good.
Connections, volume, mode, routine, sounds, sounds, volume. Hang on. Is that better?
No,
No.
Is that better?
no.
That's the fullest volume I've got.
Mm.
Yeah, it's your microphone pickup, not necessarily the sound that you're hearing. I know I might be very loud. I've got a deep voice, but I tend to I'm very loud. So if you can hear me,
So we're not going to have good sound tonight at all. Great.
may not be.
Right, because I'm not going to be able to project my voice as much as I usually. What about that? No?
Well, if you keep it at that level, are you able to keep it at that level for the whole time?
What, at this level now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's because I'm right close to it. So we'll see. We'll see when we go to the images. Right, okay. So, Roger, any news from you this week?
No, I think so.
Okay. What about you, Will?
Nothing in terms of historical context, nothing in terms of the Roman. I'm working on a project at the moment where I am profiling the individuals who lost their lives in World War One and Two in the village of Pontlottin. I did Rumney a number of years ago, but now I'm looking at who the soldiers are, who their family were, what their background is, etc., etc., etc. And so I'm planning to do a series of videos on Pontlottin. About 102 people in World War One and about 15 people in World War Two from the village lost their lives.
What about the other? What about the illegal war in 2003 with Iraq? Have you got any from there?
Not in Pontlottin. We had a young fella in Rumney who died in Afghanistan.
Right. Okay. But nobody from the Falklands now.
Nobody from the Falklands. Nobody in the earlier conflicts.
Okay. Oh, that sounds good. That sounds good. Roger.
Yeah.
Go on. Any news?
No, I say no.
Okay. And Margaret.
I just read an interesting thing about Neanderthals and the interbreeding.
Oh, not again. Not again.
No.
Not again. Hang on. Interbreeding. Let us guess. The Neanderthal DNA was far more predominant than Homo sapien DNA, so therefore Neanderthals are better than everything. Or am I completely wrong?
No, it's just the majority of interbreeding, which left Neanderthal DNA in modern humans, was driven by male Neanderthals mating with female Homo sapiens, not the other way round. And it said it could have been a mate preference. Or it could be that Neanderthal mothers and human fathers were less likely to survive and
Because
could
they
have
had
become
animals.
infertile.
Right, okay. So Neanderthal mothers, right. Is that because Neanderthal mothers had red hair and they argued too much with the men? Is that
Well,
right?
they did have red hair, as it happens.
Yeah, no, that's the point. This is what I'm working out. So
But
so
I
what
think
it
the
was.
males did as well. It wasn't particularly just female Neanderthals that had red hair.
Fair enough.
Mm.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, that's good. Okay, so that's sounding loud enough, yeah? So I was just thinking maybe we would have a little dab at Roman Londinium or the start of it. And we're not talking hardly at all about Julius Caesar, Caligula, Claudius. We're not really talking about any of that stuff because I just wanted to sort of look and get a feel of the archaeology and how that all works. However, we need to go to a little find that was made by somebody looking for asparagus.
Ooh.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I did. I thought one of you may have spotted the asparagus find.
No.
Now, before we talk about asparagus, now this is a really sentient, interesting thing. Oh my God, it's all coming into my head. Right, okay. So one of the marks of Roman civilization is some of the lingering things that they left behind. We're gonna have to start that again. Oh God, because Andy's just turned up.
Yeah, I just tapped on it.
Right, okay, so hopefully
Andy.
Andy's gonna come on. Andy's gonna come on the screen now.
Oh,
Okay, Andy's gonna come on the screen now. So as I was just about to say, so some of the
Hello,
some of
Andy.
the
Andy,
hello Andy.
yeah,
Andy,
Stephen.
you're so late, right? That Roger was almost going to drive all the way up to Cumbria and ask where you were.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
really sweet of you, Rog. Thanks, mate. Appreciate
Well,
it.
No,
you know,
no, it's
stick out
because
it
you
with
owed him
my
a
mate.
fiver. That's why.
Oh,
you
no,
know.
no chance of getting that.
Oh, no. I was going to visit Margaret once, but the chain of my bike broke, so that was it.
Hang on a minute, this is too much. I one thing starts and one thing goes off to another. So I was saying, Andy, I haven't been too great all week, so it's probably you know, I'm probably not going to be on as long as and then I find out that I'm actually a cover reporter for an event on Thursday, so I've got to get myself well for that. And one thing
Have
I
a
haven't
swig of Lucozade and you'll be fine.
I've been drinking. I've been doing that. And one thing that I'm proud to say that I had confirmation 2 days ago that a film that I had written and produced and directed is up for possibly winning a film festival, and
Well done.
so I'm quite proud of that.
Yeah,
So
good.
very good.
thank you. So so
Long time
keep
since
you-
I've had anything at a film festival.
Andy, you'll always be at a film festival in my
Absolutely,
book.
yeah. I'll be on somewhere in that great screen in the sky.
Yeah.
Which universe will that be in?
Oh, any. I'm not fussy.
No, he's with Val. He's up with the best Valhalla. That's where he is.
Yeah.
That's where he is. So anyway, anything from you, Andy? Because we
No,
were just...
no, sorry, I just delayed at work and got in late. There was something I've been trying to remember it for 2 days, but I still can't remember it. It was something about changing the dates on something that they were assessing, and it took it a couple of 100 years earlier than they thought, and it was really significant. I thought, oh, I must tell you that.
Oh,
But it was like 2 weeks ago that it was on, and I didn't get in last week, so because of that training session. So I missed
you
it,
were
and I
here
can't remember.
last week.
No, that's what I mean. That's why I didn't. If I'd been here last week, I might have remembered. But my memory don't work that far back now. So.
You've got a good memory usually.
Do you? Yeah, no, I know. I'm tired as well, which doesn't help. But I'm thinking it'll come back to me. And I thought yesterday because I was up in Whitehaven yesterday, and I thought, I'm driving back. I thought I'll need to remember what it was, and it didn't come. And I thought, oh well, it'll come tomorrow, but it
Have you
didn't.
been working in Whitehaven?
I was on
No,
a
yeah,
Coast
go on.
Guard training course.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
How
yeah.
exciting.
Yes. Yeah.
Long
What
way
a-
to go for a training course, but yeah.
Yeah,
Mind you, if you lived in Millom, it's not that far.
No,
that's
well, the annoying
true.
thing was there were a couple of guys from Millom and a couple of guys from Barrow and me. And you're thinking, well, why are we going to Whitehaven? Why didn't you have it in Barrow or Millom? It would have been half the distance and a lot easier for them. But
Or Haverick, the open air prison. You'd been great there.
yeah,
It's a nice, isn't there a nice harbour at Whitehaven?
yeah. Well,
Yes.
there is now. It used to be a right mess, but it is a very smart, nice
How
one
far
now.
is it, Dan?
There's a nice one at Maryport.
Mhm.
How far is it?
From me, it's a 2-hour drive. So
And it's not it's
No.
not exactly direct, Roger.
60 something miles. So
Right.
So you went via Ulverston, and then you cut
Yeah.
across then.
yeah, over the top. Yeah, over Coney
but-
Fell.
Put it this way, Roger. If it was like if it was direct, it would just take an hour. But I
Yeah.
know those roads; they're
Yeah.
horrific.
Like the Wild West, isn't it?
Yeah,
Depends
do
on the
you know-
roads as well. You got narrow country roads, lanes more.
Oh,
well, it is that West Coast is a narrow one. So,
Mm.
and you get stuck behind trucks, and I got stuck behind a learner driver as well, which was a bit unfortunate. There's nowhere to overtake.
when I was first sort of in Arnside, I was going up by train, right, and then yeah, Andy was sort of in on this, and then I sort of the first time I spoke to Andy, I was actually at Barrow train station.
Yeah,
right?
I remember it. Yeah,
I remember it. It was Barrow. Andy's like, I think, is it on tonight? I thought, hang on a minute, the train's in front of me. I've got to go. And this was the first time I spoke to Andy, and then this was the thing. It usually used to take me about 6 hours when I learnt the route to travel from Barry all the way to Arnside. But the first time I actually travelled from Barry to Arnside, when I passed my test, the people who were actually funding me to be in Cumbria said, instead of giving you, I had a budget allowance of for transport per week of like 250 quid. So they said, right, and it usually first class on the train. So so they basically said, right, we're going to give you the money in petrol instead of train vouchers. And I thought, right, I've just passed my test on the Friday, and I had to be up there on the Saturday. And he said, yeah, you've got to come up and I've never been on a motorway in my life. So it took me another 3 hours, and 2 of them was trying to find Arnside because the lanes into Arnside were a nightmare, right? It was absolute. I went all over the shop. It was like I ended up in Silverdale half a dozen times, and it was a nightmare. And I think one of the roads were closed. You know what that's like, Andy? It was a nightmare. So I eventually found Arnside.
Yeah, that does
I
take you
know,
around
isn't it?
everywhere. Yeah.
It must have been worth it.
It was.
Of course
It was worth it. Of course it was, but it was worth actually coming into Arnside finally, right, to my digs. But there was one occasion, right? I've gone off on a tangent. There was one occasion where I was traveling to Arnside, and on this windy lane, I don't know where it was, going into Arnside, there were all these toads on the road, and I thought, oh my god, that's brilliant, that's brilliant. Because I think I was seeing my daughter the next day. Anyway, I thought, brilliant. Why didn't I take a bucket of toads to go so my daughter could see these toads in a bucket, right? So I never found out where this road was again, ever. I couldn't find it. There were so many roads into Arnside, I could never find this road with the toads, and I was so disappointed. So I'd said to my daughter, you can see these little toads, these little things in a bucket. Couldn't do it. Oh, and Andy, you got me started now. And also, I'm other than the 2 things that I mentioned, I'm very pleased that about 3 days ago, I remember I was coughing and spluttering in the car, and I'd actually finished the first draft of a book that me and Richard had been working on for 10 years, and I thought, right, that's good, so
well done.
now it's 240 pages long, without the illustrations in it, and I've now got to edit the thing and then get it ready for draft, and then brilliant. So, and my mantra has been that I've got to get this book done before Richard cops it. So,
Oh, heck.
yeah. No,
Richard.
honestly, a serious thing about 2 years ago. I had a phone call from Richard's wife who said he's seriously ill in hospital. I said to Michelle, she said, right, you've got to get this book done, because the book guy who's been working with you on the book for like 8 years now, the book's not done. So the one thing that's pushing me forward is to get this book done before anything happens to Richard. It's true though, because in the 10 years that we've been writing this book, 4 of the people who've actually written contributions into the book are dead.
I'm not going to write with you then, Jimbo.
That's why I changed my name. Hopefully, if I change my name, it'll change the shame, and everyone will stay alive, right? I could say, Richard, you knew Carl, right? Don't worry about it. I'm Jimbo. You can live longer. Oh, I forgot to tell you, right? I'm actually a guest speaker in a Nigerian film festival, so I've had to pre-record that and get that over to him for a film that's coming out in a couple of days. And if you ask me if I'm making any of this up, I'm not, but it sounds as if I am. So, and Roger's my dad. One of those things isn't real.
You move in very mysterious ways.
Yeah, I do. Okay, so the
Back
thing
to
is,
the asparagus.
We got to get to the asparagus.
Yeah.
Do you know what? Right, asparagus. You either like asparagus or you don't, and I'm just leaving it there. So there you go. Oh, by the way, Michelle, our cat's dive bombing. He wants to go out. Or he was, right. Don't go there, guys. Right, we're gonna crack on. So this wonderful find about somebody looking for asparagus, and they found some stone carvings. So that's what we're gonna do first. So Andy, and they said at the beginning that the sound was a bit fainter, and obviously, hopefully, it's not now. So Margaret was moaning because she was the only woman on you. She is the only woman. She's got a right to moan.
That's so sexist.
Sexist, that is.
Hang on a minute. It's true though, isn't it?
No, I want to complain too.
Hang on a minute. I've got more news for you.
Oh.
Baby lambs.
Baby.
Right, let's see baby
hang
lambs.
on. Hang on. Is it? No, this is her pregnant. Hang on. Where's the baby lamb? Hang on. I haven't got a baby lamb photographs. We got 3 baby lambs.
Oh, I have seen that, Carl. I have seen that.
What, the baby lamb or this?
No, that about the that plaque. Yeah.
Oh, right.
What is it?
Isn't that really clear though? Severa. It's like
yeah.
It's a Severo. It's so clear, and the story about this you could probably work out there. You could probably work out how it was found, right? Because it's in water, right? Well, we're going to do this. No, it was found. It was found in Millham. No, it's definitely found in Millham. It would have been nicked by now, but anyway. So this is really interesting. A retired firefighter just happened upon a 1,900-year-old Roman tombstone while foraging for wild asparagus in northern Italy. And before Andy come on, Andy, you didn't interrupt this, but you did. Before Andy come on, I wanted to say the following, right? And what I wanted to say was that sometimes Roman archaeology is found in some of the most weirdest ways. And this is one of the weird ones. But before we talk about this, I'm gonna say what I want to say. So sometimes, and I've heard a couple of occasions about this, is that people have been wandering, looking in fields, and they've seen a few humps and bumps, and they've not known what those humps and bumps are, and they've found massive snails, right? Obviously, those edible snails from France, and I Roger, I was hearing a story about this. Can you, Roger? You remember Kathy and Kathy when Kathy when she used to work in Worcester in the museum there. She told me that she went on an archaeological excavation once, and the lecturer said that the reason why they were working on this archaeological site was because if you lift the stones up, those things, and it was the snails. Because these types of snails, these edible snails, don't travel far. So they must have only ended up on these archaeological sites. In Britain, I kid you not, because the Romans brought these edible snails over 1,700 years ago, 1,800 years ago, right? Because these snails don't travel far. And you can imagine that these edible snails in the middle of a field, in the middle of nowhere, right? They've come from France. And lo and behold, on those two occasions, those two incidents that I know of, there's been Roman sites that they've excavated. I kid you not, right? And there's something else as well. Don't worry if you do find edible snails from France. In Canada, it's not a Roman site, Will, honestly, right? The Romans were not shipwrecked and they left their snails there, right? So the other thing as well is that I've known archaeologists who've actually found Roman sites because of the mushrooms. That's another story, because there's a Roman site which is well, if I was in South Wales at this minute, in a place called Llantwit Major, this archaeologist, I don't know how much of this is true, but he was happened to be in a field in Llantwit Major in 1886, an archaeologist, right? And he was looking around and he found these mushrooms. And these mushrooms apparently were a certain type of field mushroom, right? Which usually occur in connection with Roman sites. And guess what, Roger? He found a Roman site. I kid you not. So I wanted to, do you know what? That's worn me out now. I want to go home. Right, so a retired firefighter, and he finds this tombstone while foraging for wild asparagus in northern Italy. And this is dated March the 23rd, 2026. So this is basically days ago. So as 77-year-old Roberto Tessari was walking along a canal near Livorno, he noticed a stone slab, and the stone slab was looking like that. It's just stone slab. It's just a stone slab. Peeking out of the water, then flipped it over to discover that it was engraved with several names, which is what we've just seen, which I think's amazing, right? And there are lots of examples of this type of thing where where there's been stones in the water that they're upside down, and you turn them, flip them around, and there's carvings. Now, they didn't say this in the, it's not really talking about this in the story, but it's if this was the other way around, it's probably that there'd be nothing on it now, right? But because it was face down, there's something on it. But for me, I'm thinking maybe it looks too good that it's been in the water all that time. I don't know, because it's not abrased as much as it should be around the edges. And even face down, there might be some water damage with the lettering. That's me being sort of forensic. So Roberto, looking around for asparagus, he stumbled across this ancient Roman tombstone that was partially submerged in a shallow creek and had seemingly become exposed after a period of heavy rains in the region. So the hint from that is it may have actually eroded out the bank, actually. So the tombstone, which dates from probably around about 120 AD 120, somewhere like that, is engraved with 3 names. Though little is known about the people it refers to, archaeologists suspect that it was made by a family of freed slaves or their descendants, and it possibly contains the hint of a family tragedy. What else do we know? So with this type of thing, the guy's been wandering around within this landscape since the 1970s. They found coins in this area, but not really finding this. So immediately notified the archaeologists, the superintendent of archaeology, and the tombstone, which had been preserved over centuries thanks to the surrounding mud, was exposed. So it's obviously eroded out into the river. Now we've got a little bit more detail. So the family behind this 1,900-year-old funerary marker, let's sort of go in a bit further. So the tombstone itself, which is a foot high, okay, and it's 1.5 foot wide and 3.5 inches thick. So it's not massive. It looks huge. It looks absolutely massive, but it's not. So so obviously, if we want to look at it, it should say the length actually. So the height of that is just a foot in height. Is this me, or these measurements don't make sense? So if that's 1.5 foot and it's a foot, maybe these yeah, that don't sound right, does it? So if it's one and yeah, that don't make sense anyway. One of these measurements is wrong. So anyway, it says it's associated with somebody known as Tito. So the way you read this is that you bring in the T, and there's a mark there where there's a little dot, which indicates there's a break in the name. So we do believe that the name was Tito. So this is the name of. So if we go let's do this again. Let's start again. So if we go with we're going to go around there. Okay, so that should be, they've translated this to be ANCONIUS. So the O on the end has replaced a U and an S.
I think that's an iOS, Carl. Anconius. It's an O.
No. I'm just reading by what I've got. This is how no, right. Let me start again. So the O is replacing a U and an S, because what we've got is, if you go here, Severo, that's Severus. So what the Romans have done, the O is actually US in both cases. So it's Anconius Severus.
Okay.
So those
might be to do with the.
Oh, don't worry. You're okay to interrupt there. I've got a problem with that.
The endings of the words could be genitive and all that.
Exactly. So
you know, with of and all. It's not just the name.
Exactly. So what it is what they've done is they've stylized the T there as being a popular name from when this sort of dates from, about the AD 120s. So interesting enough, the name below, if we get rid of that, the name below is actually as it's read. So it's ANCONIVS, or a US. It's a US. And that is actually as it's read as well. Okay. Priscus or Spriskvus. So, and Aet. So also Aet and ET at the bottom. There you go. A Sabina. So this is actually 3 members of the family, and Severa. And so basically, when we're looking at this, it's talking about. So if we want to translate that, so thus the tombstone was seemingly made for Titus Antonius Severus. No, I got to start again. Titus or Tito Anconius Severus.
If it ends in an O, it's male. If it ends in an A, it's female.
Who?
S-A. Yes, Severa. You are right. US. So the O with a US, which should be an A. You are right, Severa. And so then at the bottom we've got a V, and we've got an F. Yeah, but I don't mind people jumping. It's fine. This is how we're doing this. Is an indication that the stone was made while some of the people listed on it were still alive. This has led to speculation that it was designed for Tito, the guy at the bottom, a young man who perhaps died prematurely, as a dedication from his still living parents, who are Anconius Priscus and Sabina Severa. And she's right. Margaret's right. If it ends with an A, it's a woman. US or an O, as it's been mutated to an O, it's a male. So it goes on to say, again, this little bit of a story, although none of the people listed on the stone are mentioned in any known historical record, researchers may be able to glean some information about them. For instance, their family name Anconius is rare and may be a nod to the city of Ancona. So this is Titus Anconius of the place Ancona, Severus, the family name. So because they weren't a prominent family, the tombstone may have held special importance for them as the name, as the one way to leave a record of the name. Perhaps they sought to place themselves in the public record, literally leave their mark in history, which I think is great. So, and finally, as you can tell from these, the thing is, this isn't written history, this is carved history. This is actually there, it's in front of us. So this is why I spent a little bit of time on this tonight. So, and though the stone was later forgotten in the woods and the mud for centuries, it's now been found. It's now been added to the archaeology, making this discovery, he said at his age, 77, is certainly a great feeling. It's one of those finds that, as an enthusiast, you hope to stumble upon once in a lifetime. So I think something like this is great, because when anything like this is found, it is fantastic. And I've only been on one occasion where somebody's actually found a Roman inscription on a stone, and I've still got to write that report. So so what we're going to do now, if anyone's got any questions on it, anyone got anything else to add? Will, Margaret, anything?
It's very well carved, Carl. You say it was slaves. It's beautifully carved.
Freed
The edge is
slaves,
amazing.
freed slaves, yeah, freed slaves. Oh yeah, go on, carry on, Rod.
It's beautifully carved, quite a thing.
And actually, when you say it's beautifully carved, there's an issue with that. You've actually made a really good point. We don't really get this level of precise carving in regards to lots of later Roman carved stones in Britain. So this is in the 120s. This isn't from Britain, this is from Italy. But if you want to make a comparison, for example, the Mary Port, there's loads of Roman carved stones there. They're pretty good. But when you get later and later into the Roman era in Britain, it's almost as if they abrupt, they mutate, they alter the carving to fit the sensibilities of Roman era Britain. So our carvings are quite rudimentary, rude and common in regards to this level of carving.
But
So
they've cleaned it all up and put it back in the water, haven't they, by the looks of things?
I'm not really sure, because you are right. He's turned it around and he's thought, right, what I'm going to do is take a photograph of this. Yeah, you've got a good point. If you do look at the stone, there is water damage on those letters there. So it may have been temporarily exposed to the water at times and then ended up back in the water, that type of thing.
Mm.
So it's one of those things of archaeology. And when you, that's another point I wanted to make, right? I have, as I said, I've been, I've had really weird dreams recently, and I've just had some kind of weird illness, and I can remember I thought I woke up the other night and I thought, what happened to Rome what was Rome like after AD 476 when Rome was taken over by the Roman general Audacia, who'd actually been he decided to think, right, can't be bothered with emperors anymore, so I'll get rid of the emperor and I'll proclaim myself emperor or leader, become king of Italy. And at that point, AD 476, Rome no longer existed in the West. Anyway, I've said that. I thought, what did Rome exactly look like? Because what had happened to Rome? And it's a really interesting story. What happened to Rome in the AD 400s, because when Rome fell to Alaric, who was actually a general who had been working under Roman command until he turned on Rome, decided to capture it. It's like, well, how much of Rome survived? And actually, interesting thing is, in that period of unrest with Rome in Italy, even what we do think is that lots of the gold and stuff was taken out of Rome, but that's not true. What happened is people just had enough of Rome, and they decided to move away. And Rome, as the capital of the Roman world, had ceased to be about in about the 330s, when the capital of the Roman world actually moved to Constantinople, and the Western Roman Empire decided to move to the northern part of Italy, and we got Ravenna. So I'd stand and look at reconstructions of Rome, and in fact, they're saying the archaeological evidence tells us that the Colosseum was still operational, and the Circus Maximus was still operational up until the AD 500s. But because the population started to get smaller and smaller in Rome, so much of it started to collapse and started to fall away. So from a population of 1 million, the population of Rome went to about 200,000 and started to get less and less. And what happened to Rome was more that people moved away. And the interesting thing is, what led me to think about this carving, there's very few families that would say that their family lineage goes back to the ancient days of Rome in Italy, because it's almost as if the rich families moved out and didn't want to be in Rome anymore. I just thought I'd add that little fact. If nobody's got anything else to say, I'm gonna move on.
Karl, so Severus, either these are precursors, possibly of the same line of Septimus Severus, if we're talking in the 120s as opposed to 193 AD to 200 AD, but possibly the stem of the Septimus Severus family, recognizing that the name is the nomenclature is what keeps the Roman families together, is the continuation of the tribal name.
Yes, and remember, Septimus Severus is a bit, I don't mean this in a derogatory way, a bit bent in the history of the Roman world, because he comes from Africa, right? So, and it doesn't really tie in with the usual rules and prerequisites of Roman families. So when you think about it, you've actually made a good point there, that this is like a weird start for a family. These people are maybe freed slaves and stuff, and probably, Will, you're not the only person to make that link.
Right.
Like,
well, the family could have migrated to Africa, and the same as you have interbreeding with the slaves of the early 1800s with white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, and you have a different range. So the fact they went to Africa, they moved along, and they integrated with the natives.
I dare you, Will. I dare you to try and find a link. Go for it.
Okay.
Go for it.
I'll have to go to Italy and start my little crusade to find it then.
Hang on a minute. So no, you just look at Septimus Severus and you can go back. You how many years have you got to fill? You've only got to fill 2 generations.
150.
Well, if you're saying that this family were slaves, and we're talking about AD 100, and obviously something's happened about AD 120 if we look at the dates, and we're looking at Septimus Severus, we're looking about the 180s, 190s, right? So then we're just looking at something really interesting, so interesting times. Go for it.
There we are then.
Right. Go for it. So how I've managed to keep myself going tonight, I just don't know. It must be the LSD. But don't worry about it. Right. Okay. So we're gonna go to the question. I just wanted us to go into London tonight, and it was on the bat that I thought, right, I'm probably not gonna manage, much beyond 9 tonight. So I just thought this would be a nice little one, so to sort of give us a thing. right? And this is a nice little map. And the reason why this is a nice little map, and we're thinking about this, and we're thinking about this, and we're thinking about this, because if we think about Londinium, London, right? One of the things about Londinium, is the changes to take place, right? So what are we looking at? We're looking at, so if we want to do a little bit of penciling in, hang on a minute. Let's get back to the map if we want to. So the Roman city is actually like this, okay? And it comes down there, and that's around where the Tower of London is, so you can get an idea where we are. And you've got the South Bank as well. So the one thing about this map is this thing here. This is the River Walbrook, and this is fascinating, because the River Walbrook itself really gives an idea of structure, an idea of where Rome comes into London. Now, one of the things that we're seeing with this map is, if we look at, hang on a minute, hang on, not there, we want to get rid of that, hang on, not that there. What we want to do is what we're talking about is initially, that's the River Thames, right? So it sort of goes along there, and it's really wide. But eventually, what happens is the Thames gets narrower, right? Because it's reclaimed. And this is what really constitutes the building up of London itself. Now, if you're looking at that, yeah, all the blue lines are in fact rivers, right? That's what we're interested in. And they all feed into this massive river, which is the Walbrook, which is here. And look at all the tributaries that lead into it. So they're building this city here. And traditionally, it's all to do with folklore and the River Thames associated with a goddess, a local goddess. But in context of all of this, when we do think about London, we think about the first 10 years of Roman London. Now, there's always this thing that when precisely did Roman London come into the equation? Again, that question. When did Roman London come into the equation? When did it become Roman London? When did it become part of Rome? When did it become part of anything? So I've got to start by saying is that archaeologists have extensively looked within London to find Iron Age stuff. There are little bits here and there, but there's nothing really in London because it's a boggy, marshy landscape. So strip back London. We're stripping back London to the river. And I'll get that over to you in the break, Andy. So strip this back to the river itself. Strip London way back. Try to understand London. Try to get to it. Try to really see it. So London itself is not the same as Verulamium, St. Albans, the Cativalani people. Roman London is very different from Camalodunum, Colchester, because at Camalodunum, St. Albans, Verulamium, there was already something there. But London, there's nothing. Why London? This thing, why London? Can we answer that question? So if we strip back London, there's no St. Paul's. Duh, obvious. But there would be no St. Paul's today if it wasn't for the Romans in London. End of. There's no Tower of London. There's no city wall. There's no city. There's no nothing, right? So the Romans, it was just a tidal river. It was mud and uncertainty. There was nothing there. Again, the question why, back to that question. What we do have, we know from stuff that's been found in connection with the Walbrook excavations, right? And we can cite all these excavation stuff on another plan, which hopefully we will come up with now. So what we've got, the Mithraeum on there, is basically where the Bloomsburg building is. And when I talk about the Bloomsburg building, you can see that on there, Mithraeum. So the Bloomsburg excavations is where we get lots of our Roman tablets. So that's really important, really, really interesting to the story. So So some of the earliest tablets, roughly to something for up to about AD 50. Those are the really early stuff. So we might be able to go to maybe 50 AD 47 to AD 50 for some of the tablets that we found at the Bloomsburg excavations, where the Mithraeum is. There's another story about the Mithraeum, but we're just touching upon this tonight. And one of the things that I've been absolutely fascinated with on my series online, if somebody said to you, how many bits of Roman London can you actually see today? Nice big chunky bits. There's over 20 sites in London that you can actually see, even Tower of London. There's all the bits that says baths, right? Most of them are open to the public, right? The Guildhall, there's a bit of the amphitheatre there, right? There's bits of the fort wall. But the Museum of London is there. It's a great plan, this, isn't it? The Museum of London has bits of fort wall, Roman town wall, but I've jumped the gun, because most of the stuff that I'm talking about, the Mithraeum, just wasn't there before AD 50. None of it was there before AD 50, and it's quite likely that the marshy area was still as far as the Basilica Forum. So all of that's been re-grabbed. It's been added to what we're seeing with the idea of Rome. And the comparisons, Roger's been to Eberarkham, York with me, right? Which was the most bizarrest trip ever. Can you remember the breakfasts at the that thing, Roger? Oh, right, never mind.
I was in that guest house, wasn't
Oh yeah, you were in the guest house, were you? So
I? I had a lovely
you
time.
were the. Shut up, Roger. You were the lucky one in
Yeah, they had
York.
trouble in the hotel. Yeah.
Yeah, I had to go out at 8 o'clock in the morning to get the breakfasts, to knock everybody's door, to deliver their breakfast to them for 2 whole nights. Never doing that again.
I was okay, Jack. Carl.
Shut up, you silly man. Right, anyway, so back to this. So back to the story that I was talking about. So it's all about, when we think about Rome, was there anything there in AD 43? No. Was there anything in there about AD 44? No. So already we got the Romans in London. We got the Romans in Britain for at least 2 years, right? Was there something in London about AD 45? Maybe. The reason why people think that there's early origins in Roman is sorry, I get me really tongue tied now. The reason why people think that there's early Roman origins for London as early as AD 43 was that's historically, apostrophes, that's historically the time that the Romans had to capture this area, and they fought over it against the Cativalani people and all the rest of it, all that stuff. So they had to found a city here, but that's history, isn't it? It's not archaeology. The archaeology doesn't tell us that. So again, it's mud uncertainty. It's 10 years of development. It's at least 3 or 4 years before there's anything at London at all, and that's a fact, right? It's not gradual, it's not accidental, right? And when I say it's not gradual, there's a delay, and it's not instant. So eventually what we do see, when they are really starting to think, right, London, we want London, then after AD 50, things start to kick off for London. They really, really do. It becomes deliberate, it becomes strategic, it becomes rapid, right? The birth of Londinium. And if anyone's been watching my little series on YouTube, I've managed to get up to 97 now, and I've done all sorts of different things, bits of Roman Wall in London, bits of baths, the Mithraeum, the London Stone, for example. If I don't know if you've ever seen the London Stone, Andy, but if the London Stone shall move from London, London will fall down. And it was moved to the Museum of London once for conservation, and it's basically it's a weird little stone that's behind a bit of glass, and weird. Anyway, that's another time for another day. So why there was no London before AD 43 and before AD 44, AD 45. But if we focus on this, why there was no London before AD 43? This is crucial because London is unusual. Very unusual. It's unusual today. Unlike places such as Colchester, St Albans, there is no strong evidence for a major Iron Age predecessor at London. So the question is, what does London mean? Why London? Why here? What is going on? And I think the clue is actually in the river, not the River Thames, the River Walbrook. And the reason why I'm saying the clue is in the River Walbrook, and this is, you guys, you know by now, I'm not a fan of Roman roads in Britain. You know that. You know it. When anyone ever talks about, when Michelle says, oh, should we go and wander across the San Helen next week? And I was thinking, hang on a minute, which one? There's 50 in Wales, you know? So what she's saying, we're going to go down a little lane in the countryside, with no sign that it is Roman, but somebody called it San Helen, right? Vis-a-vis digging back from that, the Romans were more reliant upon the river system, the navigational river system in Britain, than the road system would ever be, right? And proof point of that is the Londinium, Eboracum, York. These are both associated major rivers. Also, Deva, Chester, that's associated with major river. Roger, you could talk about Cardiff, the place of the fort. Cardiff, that's along a major river, right? Saguntium, North Wales, along a major river, right? All of these major Roman cities, right, in Britain are associated rivers. Moradunum, when we're talking about Carmarthen, right? Caerphilly, that's along a major river. Most Roman cities, right? Most early Roman cities are associated with major rivers because the Romans relied upon the river systems before they ever relied upon roads. That's a fact. Hence Londinium, hence the River Walbrook. That's my take on it. So what we might do in a short while, we might actually go for a little bit of a break because we'll go for a little bit of a break because that's a good place to be. So, but before we actually go to the break, we just think again, how unusual. Look at all the rivers and they build a city there. That is the reason for that. That is the reason. Look at it. There's rivers everywhere. There's little streams, sort of Walbrook, stream tributaries. This is really important to the Roman development, right? Water's more important to having this here than roads, right? Key. So again, what we have, sort of a bit of the pre-Roman stuff. So, and then we'll have a break. So when people think, I think they've had Time Team episodes about this. I think there was a Time Team question that and I think somebody said recently that Time Team might be coming back onto terrestrial TV. I think somebody said something like that, I'm not sure, but anyway. So one episode of Time Team was that they were looking for Iron Age stuff and they found one or two bits and pieces, but this was pottery and coins, possible seasonal activity, again associated with these rivers. Trackways across the marsh, there is, yes there is. So I know he throws a little bit away from the beaten track here, but there is evidence of trackways, old trackways across the muds within the Londinium London landscape, right? But that doesn't equate to big settlements and stuff. There's no what we don't have is an oppidum. We don't have a Caliva atrabatum where Londinium is. We don't have that. We don't have, for example, Geoplontus, which is in Dorset. We don't have anything like that. We don't have oppidiums. We don't have any Iron Age towns or cities. Fact. There's no defensive earthworks. And the thing is, when we think about it, this if we put the lines on again, right? If we put the so if we put 10. Hang on, let's do that. So if we think about the basilica, right, get rid of that. We're looking about here. All of this boggy landscape, right? All of this here has to be reclaimed, right? It's all boggy, it's all marshy, right? So the boundaries of this are this is the sort of constant low water flowing river, but obviously the floodplains actually go all the way back. So if you are looking for Iron Age stuff, you're having to go for these areas, which is outside where Londinium would have been anyway. So that there's no evidence there. There's really just not any evidence. So why? Because the site was marshy and flood prone, tidal, saltwater influence, geotechnical, unstable, right? So in other words, we'll start off with this after the break. Not a place you choose to build a capital, but the Romans did. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a break there. We're going to take the break there. And what we'll probably do, I'm going to warn you, tonight is like looking a little bit about Rome. So we will start again. Tonight is a little look of looking at Londinium. So some of the things we'll be looking at in the future will repeat, but this is just like a little start, right? If we're going to look at Roman era London, Roman era Britain, we need to start off with where we are now. So, okay, folks, so let's see if there are any questions.
When
Margaret.
I'd never heard of that river Walbrook.
It's famous, my dear. Apparently it still flows.
Yeah.
Well, it's underground. It's now part of the sewage system.
Yes, it is. It still
But I've
flows.
never heard of it.
Like the Fleet
washes
River,
all.
Fleet River.
It washes all those mega bits of fat into the River Thames.
Yeah.
Those mega bogies into the River Thames.
Fatbergs.
Andy knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Fatbergs.
Fatbergs, yes.
Is the River Fleet still an open river, or is that underground
It's
as well?
underground.
None of these are open. The River Fleet is all of these are underground, and it's all part of the sewage and sort of maintenance water system. It's a bit of a shame, really. If the Walbrook was reopened, which the problem is you can't really reopen the Walbrook because you've got all these tributaries that have all been twisted and bent and distorted. But it would make a nice canalized landscape. And Andy, am I right in thinking? Have I got an image in my head saying that there's a tiny bit of Walbrook open for viewing? Am I right in that? I'm sure there is.
I'm not sure. It's ringing a bell. I was actually going to go have a look in the break. So yeah.
Was it still running when we had the fire of London?
Yes.
Was it? Oh.
Yes.
Which was the one with the heads in?
It was what?
That's the Walbrook.
Right, thought it was. Yeah.
There's a tributary of the Walbrook with a load of heads in it, right?
Oh, really?
Which we can't do tonight, Andy. That's to do with the Boudica thing, but
absolutely later.
Later, that's later. That's later.
That's
years later, at least 15 years. Years.
Did they find a burnt level from the Boudican rebellion in London?
That's years later. That's years later. Yes, they did.
They did.
They did. But there's a lot of debate over this because those skulls are a bit cranky, right? Right, let's do the cranky stuff. Can we do cranky? We're going to do cranky. You've done it, right? So when we've got the Battersea Shield being found in the River Thames, right? And we've got there's Battersea Shield. There's name a few rivers. And there's a few bits of metalwork that have been found in the River Thames, right? It's in my head there somewhere. But back in the 1800s, they also found an elephant, right? And when they found the elephant and when they found the Battersea Shield, and all the other ones named after bridges that they found in the River Thames, please mention another bridge, please. One beginning with Waterloo. The Waterloo helmet. That's it, right? Waterloo Bridge, and it's like so they found these metalwork in the River Thames, and they found an elephant. So my God, that's proof that this is the place that we hear written about. The historians say that Claudius's armies assaulted the Cativalana, and he used an elephant because we found an elephant in the River Thames. But it wasn't an elephant, it was a mammoth. But who knew back in the 1800s, right? So the problem is, it's all this assumption. So when we come to those skulls, whenever you right. I'm the archaeological evidence for Boudica in Camel and Junum, Colchester is correct, right? It's dateable, thick layers. It's all over the shop about. But whenever you find burnt skulls and stuff in as Andy mentioned, River Walbrook, it's definitely to do with Boudica. But then we retreat a little bit and think we can't assume that everything's to do with Boudica. There are other times that Roman London was under the torch. There's other events, right? Such as the mammoth is in the River Thames because it's in the muds, glacial muds, and it's been eroded out thousands of years, whatever.
Yeah.
And it turns out that these shields and stuff are hundreds of years before even Julius Caesar. It's all this assumption. So it's so easy to make these assumptions. And I've done it as an archaeologist. I've had arguments with people, not to do with this, mind you. I've had arguments with people that say, well, that's what the evidence tells us because it fits. But then you do the dating and the DNA and you're completely wrong, right? So it's always, sometimes you can, then I've bitten the bullet and said, actually, I'm wrong. Okay, fair enough. Thank you very much. So anyway, anything else, Margaret, you want to say? And
well, I guess water will wash away dating evidence, won't it? It'll be just what we know.
And back to these skulls. The skulls were actually found in a tributary in the River Brook, which had all been choked up with crap, right? So that's what I mean. So if you tried to reopen the River Brook, some of the feeding tributaries just wouldn't flow into it, so it just wouldn't really operate the same. So, and I can see an image of the River Walbrook. There's a tiny bit in London. I got it in my head. It's there. It keeps flashing. I got to look this up in a minute. And Margaret, anything else, Roger?
No, thank you.
Willis, I got to look this up, by the way, on you.
I just had a quick look. Epping Forest was the nearest Iron Age hill fort to Londinium. Go back about 500 BC.
And that's a bit further away, exactly. And we're
Yeah,
talking
well,
about
it's 40 kilometers, but that's only 30 miles as the crow flies. And the point is, you're in the estuary and the tributary, and as you say, there were mud flats. The land was lower. It was subject to the flooding because of the volume of water coming through the Severn. It's the same as in Anglia, where you had the various in East Anglia when you had the various marshes and stuff because of the inroads either the sea or the river. So it's the same equation. It's a change in the alluvial flows that impacted.
And I think a little bit of the River Walbrook flows. I think it might be associated with the Walbrook University campus. There might be a bit on view, but I don't know. Anyway, thanks for that. Anything else you want to say, Will?
That's it. Thanks. Sounds good.
Good. And I think what they've done a reconstruction of a fountain or something. I remember Andy knows what I'm talking about, but I just struggling. Right. Andy, anything you want to say?
No, I was interested in the Iron Age stuff because most of it's either wasn't there or is there and has gone because of the Roman built on top of it. But and it's always been kind of ignored, and I'm sure there must have been something because they must have crossed over the same place. It's a river crossing point, So.
Yeah, that's the question. Why? And Andy's just answered it. The reason why, right? Andy's right. The river's wide, so it's shallower. When you narrow a river, it gets deeper. That's basic. Whatever. So Andy's right. So it's wider, and because it's wider, and half of the area that the Romans occupy within that area of Roman Londinium is reclaimed. So then you think, okay, so in theory, the other half of it on the northern bank of Londinium, is there any chance that may have had Iron Age stuff there, right? And in principle, because it's closer to not being marshy land. And Andy's right, lots of it have been ignored. And it's a shame it's been ignored, because when you do want to investigate the likes of archaeology, people immediately radiate to the Roman stuff and they ignore the other stuff. And Andy's point's correct, which is quite sad. So then you're gesticulating with why London. Is it the elusive crossing point that Andy's just mentioned? It's not elusive, of course there's a crossing point. Is it that, or is there something else? Why there? And my particular thing is the Walbrook, is the river, is the ability to channel all of this power in that area. And then you develop this Roman city. But nobody ever talks about this, right? If you're narrowing the River Thames at that area, right, it's going to be prone to flooding. Archaeologists don't talk about that. So what you're doing is you're building a rod for your own back by narrowing the river. The Romans would have known this, right? And hence why the River Broadbrook must have had something to do with this, because what the River Broadbrook is doing, it's running a water channel to wash away silts and stuff, which would aid flooding in the first place. So if you're able to wash that stuff away, that's going to mean that Londinium itself might be cartographically a good place to be anyway. Right,
I'm
so
guessing when the Romans moved in, took over somewhere, if there were existing buildings, existing habitations, would they have just gotten rid of them and enslaved the people and just built, you know, like now when they build motorways and HS2 and all of that, and they do compulsory purchasing, I'm guessing the Romans would have just cleared them out, wouldn't they? And built.
Taking most of my material away. So Andy's point is that I think Andy's point is that most of it's been ignored. So if we want to put Andy's stuff there, and maybe Andy's got a point. He has got a point. I've mentioned this. Time team were looking and they got a point. Right. So then you've got to think about the other bit that in Londinium we got sort of like a land deed, and they're just sort of, which has been found within those documents, which I haven't been able to find since. By the way, I've mentioned this before, and you're thinking, right, maybe Londinium slightly different. It's really different from the workings of Camulodunum, Colchester. Is really different from the workings of Verulamium, St Albans, right? London set up slightly differently, right? And maybe there could be the argument that they wanted to stay away from upsetting people, right? Because it's marginal land, it's not the real place that people want to be, right? And the Romans established that. Roman London has got different airs and graces compared to anywhere else. If you sweep away everything Andy said and sweep away everything I said, there's no evidence at all of Iron Age stuff. Then the Romans are trying to establish something new, something cool, something interesting, something fresh, right? So we've got those two arguments battling itself together, right? But we've also got the fantasy stuff in the middle, elephants and skulls and all these other things, right? That don't add up. And London didn't occur on AD 43. It took a couple of years to occur, right? And the importance of Londinium grew in time, because the first city to be a city in Britain in regards to the Romans was in fact Camulodunum, Colchester. They went there, and then they established in Londinium.
I can't imagine they were ever worried about upsetting people.
Well, Pax Romana. My Pax Romana is you need these people to farm the land. Right, forget about everything about gold, silver, forget about it all, right? Just chuck it in the bin, right? If you're going to take, just think military mind, right? The one thing that an army needs is food, right? And if you kill everybody, they're not going to be able to farm the land. And if they can't farm the land, then you're not going to be able to feed your armies. And if you're not going to be able to feed the armies, you're not going to be able to take taxation. If you haven't got people to tax, there's no point conquering a landscape. End of.
But did they just enslave them, or were they left free people?
These were not slaves. The people who built the villas were the same people that they conquered.
Okay.
So if we think as a massive exaggeration, shouting at the screen, you're completely wrong, Carl. 5,000 Roman villas in Britain, but if there are 5,000 Roman villas in Britain, most of them weren't built associated with the Romans. And if we think about there were 5,000 native forts in Britain, then we start to come up with a fort equals a villa, and that's my mindset. Right, we've got to take a break. It's 8:28, and I want us to be back at 8. Andy will have had his dessert by then. Make sure you have dessert, Andy. So we'll be back at 8:40.
10 minutes.
What?
8:40. I got to look at the sheep.
Okay.
Okay. Say hello. From us.
I'm going to name one after you, Nobber.
Nobber. No, no. Oh. First, nice. Sus. Oh. Yeah.
Have you still got your flat in London, Andy, or has it gone?
No, we sold it.
Oh, good.
Finally sold it in January.
Yippee.
Yeah, it was. Still trying to get the mortgage sorted out for the rest of it, though. You think, you know, all the information's there, all the rest of the stuff, but this art, it's just dragging on and on and on.
Why? Is it the solicitors?
I have no idea why. No, it's not. It's not even got to a solicitor. It's still with the broker and the suppliers keep changing their minds and altering things. And can we do this and can we do that? And keep sending more and more stuff. Thinking, why is it taking so long? You know,
It's just taking forever, isn't it?
it is, and it's costing us money, of course. So.
Yeah.
So I'll try and get maybe this weekend to try and get round and find out what are left in your
It's just
in your
two small
garage.
boxes. I can bring them round, don't worry.
Because I need to bring that. I need to try and see if I've got find that chair, and
It's a
also
green one.
and see find the post pipe for your vax as well.
Oh, there's no hurry. It's Easter next weekend.
Are you around? Yeah, I know it's around, but just
Yeah, I will be.
I'll give you a bell before I come over. But it's
Okay.
just if I forget, I'll just forget about it otherwise.
Yeah.
And I'll
Don't
think,
worry.
and then I'll come looking for something. I think, where's that gone? Thinking, oh, that'll be what was over at Margaret's. I keep finding stuff like that. The other day I was trying to find something. What was it now? I can't remember now. I'm thinking, oh, that's in there. And I think, oh no, it's not, is it? It's that's over at my mum's garage, you know.
Oh, heck. Is your mum still going? Because she
Oh,
must
yeah.
be in her 90s, isn't she?
Yeah, 93 now, so
Wow.
yeah, doing all right. So
Is she really?
yeah, it's got
She's
out
not
for a little
still
walk
driving,
today.
is she?
Oh,
Is she?
no, thank God. No, no, we persuaded her not to and got rid of her car quick. So.
Yeah, but does she manage to get out walking at all?
Yeah, she went out for a walk today. She doesn't get too far now because having had a couple of falls and things, she's lost a lot of her muscle.
Confidence.
Yeah, well, and yes and no, not so much the confidence, but the muscle wasting while she was recovering has meant
Yeah.
she can't walk anywhere near as far now. So she kind of walks to the end of the road and back and that, and
Yeah.
stops and has a chat to people on the way.
Yeah.
So, but she's still getting out and about, so she's good.
Good on her.
Yeah, she walks with a stick, and she's got a one of these rollators, as they're called. It's a walking frame that you can sit down on if you need to. So,
I've got one of those in the garage just
Yeah.
in case. It belonged to Tony.
yeah,
But
it's
I thought
really
I'll hang
been
on to
useful.
that.
That yeah, it has been really useful. That so
Yeah.
ours was a hand me down, and the lady it came from lived to 103, so it can't be bad.
When is it that we have to pay for the garden waste
I
stuff?
don't know. I haven't actually had anything about that I've noticed. So it should be. I'm sure it should be because they're supposed to be changing all the waste recycling now.
Yes. Somebody said April, but that's
Yeah, but I've not
tomorrow,
heard.
isn't it?
Yeah, I've not heard anything or seen anything about it. So,
No.
but,
But some people have got 2 or 3 green bins. Have they got to pay £60 for each one?
I bet they don't. But yeah,
There's got to be a lot of
yes,
tipping in the woods, isn't there?
yep, there is.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether you've noticed with all the recycling at the moment, it all goes in back up. They just chuck it into one big lorry now.
I know.
You're thinking, what is the point of it? Yeah, well, they're talking about having 4 bins,
Yes.
one for food waste,
Yeah.
one for general waste, one for recycling stuff, which would be your tins, plastics, and bottles and things,
Cardboard.
and one for something else. Can't remember what the other one was for. That's
Well, the
coming later.
gardening
No,
waste.
that wasn't including the garden waste. There's another one coming.
Is
That's
that?
supposed to be later on in a few months' time. And thinking, well, what's the point? You know, they chuck it all in the same thing anyway. So,
well, don't they sort it out at the other end, apparently?
well, I had an argument with a guy about that years ago, saying, why don't you do that? Just put it all in one bin and then sort it out. And I said, you could get unemployed people or low paid, the low risk prisoners. And he said, oh, we tried that with the prisoners up at Egremont, and they just brought loads of drugs in, so we had to stop. I thought, what's another issue? And that's nothing to do with it. Why aren't you doing it? So
yeah.
so they were sending it off to Holland or something at that point. You think that must be costing
Oh, goodness.
Hey, don't get me started on this, because I used to work for Ceredigion County Council, and I was on the bins, right? Because after I'd done my stint working for them for 7 months, they said, well, we can't have the pirate working, in Newquay because there's nobody there. So they said, oh, we'll put you on refuge, right? So I was on the refuge vans, right? So I would go to the depots, and it would be like, hang on a minute, we've just been fining members of the public, right, for not sorting out the rubbish, and then we dump it all in one pile.
Yeah.
And so in other words, the public have sorted out the paper and the plastic, and then it all gets dumped in one pile. And then I say, what happens to this? Oh, we burn it all.
Ah,
Yeah.
Well, I said and it just think, and they said the only thing that we don't get any money out of the metal, it just that also gets disposed of with the plastic and the paper and all the rest of it, and we only get money for the glass, right? And I'm saying that we actually fine people for not sorting the rubbish, then we put it all together and we burn it. Yeah, that's right.
Really,
and that,
yeah.
And it's shocking that recycling is a nonsense. It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
well, apparently in Germany, they do like we used to do. They give you money back on any glass. If you got glass jars, glass bottles, you take them back to the shop and they give you a few pence in return.
No,
I used to do that when I was a child.
Yeah, worked quite well then, didn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know my first mini fortune I made out of collecting aluminium cans out of bins. I used to get a penny a can. So and this was in the late 1980s, early 1990s, and I the school I went to, I said, oh, there's an aluminium lamppost over there. Do you need it? And they said no. So I cut the thing down and took it to the thing. And I used to. Honestly, I did. I made £15 out of an aluminium lamppost. But the point is that there used to be money in this stuff, and now there's not. It doesn't make sense.
No.
As a side note, recycling. In my book, A Fear of Global Warming, I have the concept that all waste can be liquefied. And it's because of the composite nature of all the bits and pieces that goes into waste, whether it's food, plastics, etc., it can be liquefied. And at some point in the future, it can be pumped back into the old wells that are empty throughout the world, which will then, over time, be regenerated as new oil based on the pressure and the heat and the temperature. Now, significant investment, long term. But that's the answer when we run out of oil and we say, now we need another product. In fact, if we took our waste rubbish, instead of burning it and putting the carbon in the air, you actually condense the carbon, you pump it back into the old wells throughout the world. And over time, that stuff will become oil. And then you start again and you use it for the appropriate purposes.
Have you sent a letter to Mr. Carney?
No, I haven't sent a letter to Ms. Carney, but it's in my book. The point is that's one of the foundation stones of my concept of dealing with global warming created by the transference of heat from the core to the seabed. And it's because of the oil extraction, which is explained in my book in depth and calculated. It's the concept of taking the waste and pumping it back into the earth.
I was liking the idea that we could get a tanker full of oil from the Middle East, empty it out, and then fill it up with your liquid recycling and send it back, and they can pump it in.
Yeah.
There we go.
Love it.
There's another concept.
Yeah.
And put it in an old well.
Yeah.
No, that just makes all good sense. It's just like it's quite shocking that there's the amount of waste. And one thing that I see, right, is that Roger and I live in a complete fantasy, right? We live with another tier of government which doesn't work, right? And this sounds political, right? And that tier of government says that we should plant up millions and millions of trees, right? I live in the countryside, and the active policy of the local farmers here is to cut down as many trees as they possibly can because they don't need the trees. And what happens is lots of that wood just gets burned, left alongside side of roads, and just rots down. And I tell you what, right? It's nonsense. All of this stuff is nonsense.
That's another one of my platforms, Carl, is the amount of trees that we need to plant. And right now, I make this comment, the weather variable between the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere is caused by two factors. One is the clear cutting of the extreme amount of the rainforest in the Amazon, and the other is the generation of great carbon emissions by China. And those two elements have caused an inversion in weather patterns throughout the world, which has led to the fires in California, the fires in Canada, floods, tsunamis, the old weather, excessive rainfalls in other parts of the world. And this has caused within the last 30 to 40 years, primarily because of these two things. If they stop cutting the trees down, it's practical to put trees in plant trees in Britain. Canada, when I was in the Boy Scouts, we used to have a program called Trees for Canada, and Boy Scouts every year would go out and plant thousands of trees in various vacant lots. And this was a thing for Boy Scouts in the 80s. So, 40 years ago. But the point is, when you plant more trees in Britain, yes, you need them, but because Britain is saturated with rain, and yes, you are in fact seeing extremes now with the weather patterns because of the warmer summers, the wetter winters, possibly snow, or maybe not as much snow. But in 50 years, your weather patterns have changed. But planting trees are very important, and there were trillions of trees in the Ice Age onward. And the core concept was to take out the carbon that the volcanoes pushed up in the sky, consolidated it, and then, the layers of coal and oil that were built over a period of time. And that's all part of a concept that's in my book.
And that is proof that God exists, because God said that we need all these trees to deal with the ozone. Exactly. So that's proof that God exists, Margaret.
We're still in an interglacial period, though.
Oh my God, you are completely correct. Let's be reminded of the fact that we're in an interglacial period. We are still in an ice age because we've still got ice on the ice caps, and ice is still on the end of Roger's nose.
I believe China's addressing their problem. They're getting to grips with it, so I've read, and cutting their emissions significantly.
That's true. That's true.
Good.
Oh, yes, they are. When you look at Mongolia, they're rewooding massive amounts of Mongolia and all the rest of it, and all those areas. I can't even remember which country Mongolia is part of, but you know what I'm trying to say, right? Those areas like Mongolia in China, yeah. Hang on a minute, isn't Mongolia part of China now?
No,
I don't
think so.
I don't know.
Can I just make a comment? Why have you got some snow on the end of your nose?
Oh, you have, Roger.
What?
Right, guys, let's get on with it.
It's the light.
Let's get on with it. Andy wants to go home. Right, okay, then let's get started.
Andy is home.
No. Him and his missus, they've got another home. He only uses this home for us. Right, so we
I'm in the West Wing. Yeah.
All right, he's in the West Wing, is he? All right, okay, fair enough.
I'll get you.
Hey, guys, I've got to do I've got a report for a local newspaper, and apparently, right,
Doing what?
I've been given a table, right, and I've got to test the food, and I've got to take photographs and take people's. Do you know what? It's great. It's great. Sometimes do it being my life, and I've got a beautiful woman who sits down there listening to my nonsense, who makes me cups of tea all day. So it's great.
You're very lucky.
Mind you,
Very true.
Michelle's got a very nasty temper if I upset her. So and she's got red hair, so I better not upset her too much. And she paid me a fiver to say that as well. Right, so
She's a very good artist, actually.
yeah.
Good.
Oh, yes, she is. Yes, she is.
Yeah.
And she's meant to be doing the cover of the book, and we've only got 2 months to get it done, Michelle.
Okay, painting.
She did say, why didn't we just have a naked fit picture of you and Roger in a loving embrace? And I said, people buy it just to see Rog.
Oh. Right.
Right. I gotta try and get so back that this is not a place you choose to build a capital. The question is, was Rome wanting to build a capital here? The answer is they eventually did. Now, this nice little plan here, it's not the best in the world, right? But it gives you an idea. Amphitheatre, the Roman fort actually within the walls of the confines of the city itself. So what we've got the fort being constructed first, and then the city itself being built in sort of a robust form around it. Now, we can't say that all of Roman London was actually occupied with buildings and basilicas and forums and temples and large statues of Lloyd George. But one thing that we can say, it was a major location with bridges, and obviously you've got the South Bank as well, Southwark. That's really important. The South Bank itself is massively important, and it's where my mate Nancy Rosenberg comes in, because that's where that's where we found that wonderful little remember that little sort of tin box with sort of cream on it? Remember that from ages ago? That was from the South Bank, Southwark. Southwark it was, down in Southwark. So the Thames crossing, that's really important when we think about this. The Thames, there is a point that there was a crossing, and Andy's point is that maybe this was chosen because it was a little bit narrower from what was east and a little bit narrower from what was west at this point. The other point as well is this is an ideal location between going deeper into the Reading landscape. This is an ideal location in regards to being navigable. This is ideal. This is your York of the south. And in fact, the Romans hadn't even got to York at this stage, right? But York has got 2 rivers. This has got 1. But, if you want to add the Walbrook, there's the Walbrook there. So this is crossable at a controlled point. I think that's the point. Maybe this is the place that you put a control point. This is like the little sort of bottleneck. Maybe we're thinking about a bottleneck area. Maybe the Romans had a little idea. The Walbrook, again, washing away the silts, stop any sort of major flooding in sort of Londinium, sort of were the amphitheatre itself, and sort of the basilica and the forum. But we're not actually there yet. It's likely that lots of these bigger things were sort of built by about AD 100 and not before. But the fort was definitely there. That's really important. And notice the fort is up there. It's not down at the front. It's up there. Because if it had been down at the quay front, there would have been nothing there in AD 50. That's the reason why it's there. It's on higher ground. So actually, you can't dream of a better plan than this, really, because it's sort of quite simple. It's really interesting. And it's sort of showing first, it's sort of noughties, 100s waterfront is sort of a little bit set back there. So that's that by this stage, a big chunk of the marshy area had actually been sort of tamed. This whole area had sort of been tamed, you know? So this whole area was now under the landscape of the Roman vista, right? So it took a while, 50 years, but we're now starting to build big things. The basilica being really interesting there. It's likely as well, the basilica, just a few facts that I'm just going to chuck away in here to sort of give us a little bit more evidence. By around about the 320s, AD 320s, 330s, most of the basilica needed to be demolished because there was massive subsidence caused by the marshy, boggy landscape that the basilica was built upon. Some reclaimed sort of marginal land, which wasn't sort of in the muds, but sort of there, right? And it was a bit too big. So, you know, lots of the basilica forum and columns and stuff were actually used in the sort of rebuilding of the city wall. The city wall around Londinium was built more than once. So again, sort of something that I just wanted to avoid a little bit, but we can't sort of completely stick away from mentioning Claudius in history. So the context of this area, maybe that's the point. That is the issue, that this point itself may have been sort of in the minds of the Romans. Maybe this is in fact, they decided to put a city here as a foundation myth because this is where they crossed to get into the area of the Catavaloni. That sound makes sound sense. And the reason why that makes sound sense, think about the foundation myth of Rome. Romulus and Remus. That's their foundation myth. When you think about Romulus and Remus, it was the 7 hills of Rome, right? Marshy, boggy landscape. We're going to build something here, right? This is where we're going to start Rome. Can you hear that there's a foundation myth associated with Londinium? This is the place, boggy, marshy, little sort of humps and hills and little rivers. It might look a little bit like Rome. Spit, spit, spit. But maybe there's a little bit more sense in that. This is the place that we might need to establish Rome in Britain. But then again, I could be completely wrong, because this is a city for the Roman Empire in Britain wasn't an instant thing. They didn't think that AD 47, this is where the Roman city is going to be in Britain for the next 400 years. That was going to be something added. Camalodunum was a big spot for a while, and in fact, so was Eboracum York, a big spot. But Eboracum York's got so much in common with Londinium, it's unbelievable. So then by AD 47, things are planned, things are occupied. It's securing this area. So when we think about it, it's in a nice little bit of a spot, because when you look at a little bit of a map like this, if we get to where we are and get rid of that nonsense, so if you've got Londinium here and Camalodunum there and here, you can start to think about that this area itself is a nice area that you can control. And Londinium is actually part of that. And in fact, what you're thinking about as well is that this area itself, Londinium, would have been a border territory associated with the Catavalani people, which is actually here. So if you're crossing into the territory of the Catavalani, and you're now into the territory of the Trinovantes, you are now starting to send the idea of control. The River Thames, the River Thamesis, which we do thoroughly believe is associated with an early native god or goddess. Goddess, actually. So this area, Londinium, going back to one of our little bits of maps and plans, it would then mean that everything south of here is securely under control. Everything south of the Thames is now under our control. Now we have got a foothold on the northern part of the River Thames. And what do I mean by that? Well, Roger knows probably what I'm talking about, because years and years later, the Normans, to establish their sense of Normans, not Romans, Normans, the Normans to establish their their sense of control over Britain, and then the idea of control into a territory known as Gwent, or southeast Cymru, southeast Wales, right? What the Normans did, they didn't just build a castle on the western side of the river, right, into the territory of the Welsh for no reason at all. They built it because that was their first step of a foothold to the area that the Normans would eventually conquer, which would be the whole of Cymru Wales. It's not just there for no reason at all. Because Roger, wouldn't it be easier just to do the eastern bank and to put a castle there? It's easy, right? But it's strange that the Normans, one of the first castles that the Normans built in the whole of Britain was actually in the territory of the Welsh, the territory of the Cymru, right, on the western bank, right, of the river itself. So going back to sort of this idea, sort of, you can now say that actually we're here to stay, the northern part of and the other thing as well is they could have built this on the south bank. It's the south bank. The south bank would have been easier to have built this city because there was more up areas. It was less boggy. It was less marshy. It would have been better to have controlled the south bank, but no, they decided to control the north bank, and you can see an idea why that is. So again, the initial focus is not Londinium, AD 43, 44, 45, but eventually London itself would be the place where things radiate. River systems radiate from here, obviously the Thames. Obviously, then you can start thinking about roads. You can start thinking about this being one of those centres. And there it is. So the other thing as well is London itself is between St Albans, Camel and Dunham. It's controlling that great river. It's controlling those routes to the likes of Caleves. You can see Caleves on the map there. So this all starts to come in. And okay, I'm going to say it. There are Roman established roads in Britain. Yeah, they do exist, right? I'm not saying that they didn't, right? There are impressive Roman roadways in Britain, right? But most of them start off with native trackways. That's one thing I'm very clear about. Very, very clear. And you notice the one that goes from Londinium, Canterbury to Dover. It doesn't go directly to Richborough because obviously the River Thanet and you need a bridge over there because it's all muddy. But that's another story. So again, thinking about London, where it comes in, look at that there. That's what it looked like, amazingly enough. That's what it looked like once. You can think about Cleopatra's Needle there. You know, you can look about looking over to the River Walbrook. Not the River Walbrook. You can think about looking over to the opposite South Bank, Southwark. Obviously, this is probably more what the River Walbrook looked like, right? But if you want to widen this, this is what the landscape looked like when the Romans came to London. So where does London come in? It emerges where the Romans face a logistic problem. How do you move troops and supplies across the River Thames effectively? You need to establish something. You need something here. You can't just rely upon the South Bank. You need to establish something on the North Bank. You need a bridge. Fords are not reliable, right? If you need to get supplies across, okay, you can use river systems and stuff, but if you're trying to get to the likes of St Albans, you need to establish something at London. So, and Rome, quote, does not tolerate inefficiency. It doesn't. So you needed to move things. So think about it. Number of sort of bridges. You can see on the south side there, the River Southwark. River Southwark. You can see the South Bank there, which if you altered that around, so obviously the North Bank on the right, the South Bank on the left. Obviously, there's a lot of marshy ground sort of on the left-hand side of the Southwark. But this would have been hang on, stop that. That would have been much better because it's more raised, but there's probably less area to create a city. So hence, maybe that's another reason why you're going with here to build a city on the North Bank, right? So again, things are completely changed. Things are really, really different. And you know, if I had a lot of money, right, I would say to you guys, right, I'll pay I'm not paying for your flight to come over here, Will. It's going to be too much, but I might. But if we could have a little bit of a mini bus, and I could pay for the accommodation for a whole week in London, right? And you can be my guests, and we can go around all the Roman sites in London. I'd love to do it, right? Because there's loads of Roman remains there. But when the decision to found London is really, really important. This sort of decision. So London itself. So by about AD 47, we know from the Bloomsburg site, which is, if we go back again, the Mithraeum. That's lots of these tablets come from here. They come from the Bloomsburg building. And a little bit, you know the story of the Mithraeum in the 1950s, 1956. The Mithraeum they excavated, and they moved it down the road. And then when the Bloomsburg offices wanted to go to the original location of the Mithraeum, they decided we want the temple back, right? We want to move it from there back to here, and we want to build the Mithraeum. So they brought it back to underneath the Bloomsburg building, which is absolutely brilliant. And whilst they were excavating the Bloomsburg building, alongside where the old Mithraeum used to be, they found, as we've already said in the past, they found loads and loads of these tablets. And these tablets tell a story of the expanding Londinium itself. They do tell a wonderful little story. And I know we've actually looked at this, and there are hundreds of these. And I said that, you know, these tell the early defined story of London itself, and you can just about see echoes, because this would have been a wax tablet, right? And you could just see echoes of where the stylus went a bit deeper, and went into the wax underneath and carved into the wood down below. You can just sort of see it. Now, there was a little conversation, if I can remember, that we had about this, that it was Bill actually in the other class. He said, well, hang on a minute, I can't see how these things work. Why didn't they just actually use the stylus? And if the wood was soft, why didn't they just gouge into the wood below? And because there's no wax on these things, and the last stuff that was written on in the wax actually ended up being carved into the wood below, right? Anyway, that's a really interesting point. But more to look at that again. So when we think about this, and we think about some of the archaeological evidence, there's bits in churches like this. I found this the other day. I put this online. There's little bits of Roman wharf piling, and this is one of them. And this and I found this months and months ago, and I thought, I don't know where this is, but look at that. So this piece of timber beam from a Roman wharf, specifically a piece of Roman piling, estimates to be about from AD 75. So some sort of later wharfs, and was discovered on Fish Street Hill in 1931, and it ended up in church. Significant, it is considered one of the oldest physical parts of London's original river crossing, associated with the bridge itself. Current display, the timber is prominently displayed inside the archway of the Tower of St Magnus, the Martyr Church, on Lower Thames Street in London. Look at that! It's like, you can think like a little bit of a touchy-feely thing, but look at that. I think it's actually a big piece of oak itself. So all of this is to do with crossings. It's to do with a tactical place, a planned commercial and logistical hub after AD 43. And we see that with the tablets, we see this with the archaeological evidence and this bridge. So a river crossing, first reliable bridge site, controlled movement point. And again, it's that point that there's sort of a little tiny bit of a bottleneck. You can't really wade across the River Thames in the winter months. You need a bridge. And you've suddenly got control of the North Bank because you've built your fort there, right? Again, militarily, this is seen in history over and over again. The way to conquer a country is to sort of get a little bit more and more, and sort of, we can see that with a certain conflict that's going on the planet now. So the other thing as well is that, again, what we see is that you can see that they're expanding, that they're expanding into the River Thames. So what you're doing, you're building a wharf. You've pile driven into the mud, and you're filling it up with debris, and then you're reclaiming more and more of the River Thames, so it narrows. And that means that now you've got a bridge. The river itself narrows. The only way to cross the River Thames here, you can't wade it anymore, because the narrowing of the River Thames means that the river scours deeper and deeper into the mud. So the bridge becomes more and more strategic, more and more important. So it's the road junction. So early roads converge: Londinium, Watling Street, Kent to the northwest, route over towards the east to Colchester, and a route westwards towards Kiliva Atrebatum and Silchester. Londinium becomes a hinge between land and river transport. It becomes the hub. So then when we think about this as a hub, what we then do, we look at the archaeological evidence, and we look, this area no longer exists, okay? And when we think about this, we start to develop the plan. So when we think about a Roman city, Londinium, again, this is a tiny little bit of information overview tonight. The Romans, after they had sort of claimed and built their bridge, they started to build the likes by around AD 100, the Basilica. You're starting to think about lots of bathhouses being constructed, the wharf itself, and then eventually you've got the city wall going around Londinium. The city wall didn't go around Londinium overnight. It just didn't happen. What they were trying to do is build a locality. They were trying to develop it. The fort would have gone in there, but then the city wall then develops. Maybe after AD 60, Londinium had been there for a short period of time. Maybe they started thinking, right, we need more than just a fort. So the bridge itself, the nice reconstruction there. The bridge itself is in many ways a defining act of the principles of establishing Londinium. The bridge, because without the bridge, this thing on the northern bank means nothing. And this illustration is probably from about AD 150, when the walls around it, and you've got the basilica and you've got the temples and all the rest of it. And again, the bridge itself, an important bridge, and it's a fortified bridge. Obviously, you've got what's on the south bank, and that building on the south bank on the left, that would be called a mansio. That's sort of like a hotel, where your horses would be in the stables, and you'd be able to bathe and so on and so on. So that's going to be a mansio. So the Romans themselves were saying, by building a bridge, by building the city, and all the archaeological evidence, all the documents going into the AD 50s, AD 51s, before the fact that it's burnt down in the Boudiccan rebellion. And again, more about that when we get to it. So archaeological evidence, timber piles driven into the riverbed, expanding the area that we're reclaiming from the riverbed, oak being used, oak construction. And what's helping us date the bridge? What tells us about the dates of the wharfs and everything else is in fact dendrochronology. So lots of dendrochronology tell us that lots of oak was being driven into the muds, like we might see in Holland, sort of reclaiming sort of dikes and polders and all the rest of it, right? This itself is the sequence of dating archaeological evidence. So by about AD 50, the Romans were really, really serious. They wanted this to be something very, very special. And this is where we go with lots of this archaeological evidence, the archaeological evidence of the wharves, the quays, reclaiming the muds from the River Thames for people to build temples, houses, storage buildings, to people to actually live in Londinium and to build the wall. So construction is pile. So when we look at this as well, so construction style, pile supported timber bridge across the muds, likely narrow but robust. So robust enough so that you can have carts going across, robust enough that you can have infantry going across, pack animals, and to have the functions of developing Roman era Britain. Now, somebody said earlier on about who's constructing all of this. Well, the Roman military is not really constructing most of this. You need local people. And Margaret mentioned, did they use slaves and all the rest of it? From our knowledge of history, using slaves to develop this type of timber work, right? Look at this here. This is layers and layers. These are meters down, right? This is what made York. This is how they're reclaiming the landscape from the mud to sort of build upon. This is being built by people who are actually in the service of the Roman state, who are actually being paid, local people who know the mud, who know where to cut the trees, who know how the River Thames works. Slaves are not going to be able to do this. They're just not. This is not done by slave labor. This is done by people who are actually in the employ of the Roman state. And if they're in the employ of the Roman state, you've got to have buildings. You've got to have places for them to stay. You've got to have storage depots. You've got to bring in supplies. You've got to bring in supplies to build London. This is what all the archaeology is about. So when you think about this is way deeper. This is years and years later. But again, if we go to this other illustration, this is more like it. All of those people are reliant upon these storage buildings, these mancios, to bring material in. The bridge is massively important, but also so is important the people who are actually building London to actually create this archaeology that we're actually seeing. And we will actually come back to all of this again. So the point that I've made many times, what we're seeing is material evidence. We're actually seeing timber evidence, right? So the interior of a waterfront showing nailed tiebacks, right? So these are actually tied into the timber work, right? This is skill. This is people who know how to work in wood, right? And we're thinking, well, okay, well, what's the Roman military doing? Well, the Roman military are not really here. It's only a small garrison of like 500 men. They're not capable of doing this. They might be supervising it. So the earliest settlements by about AD 50, Roman London is not monumental. Remember, it's timber. It's timber that creates London, right? Eventually, the stone and brick and all that stuff is used. So timber, mud, and speed. That's, again, timber, there's mud here, and speed. We need to get it done. We need to make this place the place that is our start, our bridgehead to move further north. And at this moment, I step back and I think about the military stuff. I think lots of you were interested when we did Northern Ireland, when we did the Irish stuff, and we will come back to Ireland. I think the Romans were enthusiastic about Roman Britain initially, right? But after a while, it was like, why do we need more of it? You know, we don't need Ireland, right? We don't really need the Isle of Man, right? We don't need the Outer Hebrides. We don't need Orkney. We don't need Shetland, right? Why do we need more of it? You know, and that's a really good point. The Romans might seem to you guys as people who are constantly conquering, but the problem is constantly conquering wears down your spirit as a civilization. So again, looking more at the archaeology, understanding the archaeology, I think this is a great image, this. So waterlogged conditions have preserved extraordinary detail of the Roman world as it's developed in London. It's not the stone stuff. It's not the brick stuff. It's not the amphitheatre found under the Guildhall in the 1980s. It's not bits of the basilica. It's the wells. It's the wharves. It's those documents that we find associated with the Bloomsburg excavations. It's all the wooden stuff that is really well preserved. Even Andy's skulls, the River Walbrook. The waterlogged conditions have preserved extraordinary detail. And again, more of these again. So timber buildings, watland daub walls, wooden floors and walkways, quays along the river. One thing that I would argue is that, oh God, I don't want to say this, but I will. York is overrated because there's a lot of wooden stuff being found in London as well. You know, there's as much wooden material to do with archaeological evidences from the past being found in London as there's been found in Eberacombe, York. But I think the stuff in Eberacombe, York is associated with another period in history, i.e. the Vikings, that seem to have a little bit more interest than Roman waterfronts and developments at the time they were found in the 1970s. But now this stuff is actually riveting. So the key features, just sort of within the archaeology, the early development of Roman Londinium, waterfront development, timber revetments, landing stages, early harbour activity. And one thing that we do have is that the early harbour activity is metres and metres away from the River Thames now, because the early harbours were further inland as they are now, because then all that land between the harbours inland have actually been reclaimed from where the River Thames edges today. So what we then got is that then what they're doing is, what we do have is this bigger stuff, like the baths and sort of the basilica and the temples and all the rest of it. Initially, these are like small, narrow plots along the roads, along the green roads, workshops, living spaces, industrial activity, metalworking for the nails to assist in the construction of this new town, craft products, trade goods, processing. All of this stuff is in the archaeological evidence in the muds alongside the quays and so on. So dating evidence, pottery, early Roman imports. And because the other thing as well is, before they could do the metalworking, before they could do any of the craft stuff, before they could trade good processing, the pottery had to be imported. So what we might have is lots of grey wares and lots of Samian wares, lots of pottery from Germanicus and Gaul and so on. All of this stuff is stuff found in the muds. And again, Claudian coins, Nero coins, the dendrochronological archaeological evidence helps us understand that suddenly into the AD 50s, the rapid development within a decade of this sort of invasion, right? So early it's slow, and then after AD 50 things start to come off. So who are the types of people living in Londinium? So we get an idea from some of these tablets, but who are the people living there? So even if we don't find any evidence of the traders, which we do, the traders are bringing the goods in and they're bargaining, right? So vis-a-vis, if we don't have evidence for traders, they must have existed because people couldn't have survived in London without goods, right? But we've got evidence of the traders. So we've got soldiers with the fort that's in Londinium. They were here and about. The coins that the soldiers were sort of, you know, bartering with the traders and all the rest of it, right? So we know the soldiers are there. The administrators, you can't do this without administrators. So they existed. And not only have I mentioned about local people integrated into Roman economy. And there's another point for this. It's a mixed frontier town. So whenever you think about the likes of, the Mayflower, and you think about the 1620s, because I think that's the date of the Mayflower, isn't it? So when you think about North America, it's like that border territory, it's like that frontier stuff where they're forced to listen to what the Native Americans are doing. They're forced to sort of trade with Native Americans. So if you want to think that as a metaphor, we've got to do the same with the Britons. And this is the way empires are built. This is the way the British Empire was built with India. It was, we send a little bit of a boat in there and they trade the stuff and say, oh, can we have build a little bit of a key here? And this is how empires are built, This is when we think about Captain Cook and, he's trading and all the rest of it, eventually gets killed. But this is how these things begin. And the Romans were no different. So we then see something else going in with London. So when we're thinking about as London is really starting to come off into the 100s, 150. So what was moving through London? So even in the early stages, not just now here, even in the early stages, Londinium is already active. Massive evidence for imported wine, amphora, imported olive oil, amphora, barrels importing other wines, fine pottery, Samian ware, metal goods, agricultural produce. So people, before any of this, people are actually getting a taste people are actually getting a real taste for Rome. They really, really are. They're getting a feel for it. So this tells us something critical. Londinium was founded for trade first, not administration, because you could not do Londinium without trade. Then eventually it becomes a city. Administration comes later. But the other thing as well is you can't do this without some kind of administration also. So we're thinking about that. So thinking again, and I wish I had more images tonight, but I didn't. So interpretation. So we're bringing this to you strongly. Londinium is not, and that's another point. Londinium is not a tribal capital. It's not associated with the Catalani people. It's like a Baracum, right? It's not associated with a large number of people. And it's a gamble, folks. It's a gamble. You've got to get people here to help, right? So the only way to get people here to help is to look at this lovely Samian ware. Look at what we've got, boys and girls. Come to us, right? We don't go out there, Margaret, we don't go out there and just nick people to build these things, because if they're slaves, they'll soon bugger off or die. The best example of slavery not working is the concentration camps, right? When the V1 and the V2 rocket programs are in full swing, the camps had workers going out, the work camps. Yes, I do know the difference between a concentration camp. One of the 1,000 work camps. Those workers that were involved in the V1 and the V2 industry, they were slave workers for Stott, and they were urinating on the boards that operated the targetry for the V1s and the V2s. So instead of these V1s and the V2s ending up on London, they would blow up in the air. That's what slave workers do. They're not the best. They scupper plans. So you could not have done this with slave workers, right? As a metaphor from the Second World War, this is a metaphor for now in the Roman period. So this is not a tribal capital. It's not for example, if we go back again, right? If we go back to this plan, I really do like this little plan. It's great. So the fort's not big, is it? It's a little fort for 500 troops. It's not a lot, and we know it was a fort for 500 troops because when we're talking about AD 60, these troops are no army to stand up to Boudicca. Right, so it's not a fortress; it's a small group of troops, and they would remain to sort of keep an eye on Londinium, and it's not a religious centre. So what you're not doing, you're not going into an area and saying, "This is Rome. We are now conquering your city, or military fortress, or religious centre." You're conquering mud, and I think, okay, Andy's got a good point. Yeah, okay, north of that sort of green horizontal line, you know, there may have been some Iron Age stuff, right? But overall, the Romans are not conquering a city. They're not doing that. That's not in the archaeology, right? So it's a birthplace, going back to the Romulus and Remus with Rome. You know, the Romans not just doing the Romulus and Remus thing in here. They're doing it in lots of places. You know, so at its birth. So when do we want to say that Rome had its city in Londinium? When does that stone originate from that is in London that you can actually see on display? I'll tell you where it is again, unless some of you know now. That stone's probably a lot later, but if we want to talk about the wooden foundation of Londinium, basically from about AD 45 to about AD 47 max, it's an economical hub, economical machine. It's built because Rome needed movement, it needed control, it needed to supply efficiency, and it needed the damnable Pax Romana. You, my friend, are coming to us, and we need you. Come on, boys. It's all good in war, right? So you're getting people, boys and girls, you're getting people into the Roman idea. So in a bit of a closing today, so Roman Britain started off slowly, right? Siga siga, as the Greeks would say. I'm used that term for ages. So the this whole thing, Roman Britain, didn't happen overnight. It was a slow thing, right? It wasn't this massive, brutal conquest that lots of the historians tell us. It's and the other thing as well is, right, I'm just going to spit it out truthfully, right? If the if the Roman military had much resistance across Britain, right, they would have lost a lot more men, a lot more legions, right? There was not those casualty figures, right? It would have been likely that the Romans would have withdrawn quite quickly if there had been massive resistance. I don't agree with this massive resistance of all these tribes in Britain. I'm sorry, I don't go with it. For me, it's nonsense, right? But you know, but the Romans needed to slowly, and Pax Romana was a slow thing. Yeah, you know, for example, there was probably somebody sat down on the northern bank of the River Thames, building a wharf, and there's a little boat coming down, and thinking, well, where is everyone, right? Well, the only way we're going to get people here is to sort of, you know, go out there, right, and get them here. We got some work to do, right? The Roman military are going to be too busy. When you think about it, right, big fact here. If you've got 5,000 Roman troops, you know, building Londinium, right? That's going to be one of the 3 legions in Britain, right? So that means that what else is going to, you know, you're going to be left open to attack, right? You know, and the whole point is it is being built mainly by civilians, and that is a fact. So again, the bridge, back to the bridge, the most important thing, a bridge stands across the Thames, massively important, roads converging on Londinium, obviously the Walbrook. You can use the Thames itself to go all the way past sort of Reading, you know, and all the rest of it you can use, and the Thames goes out into the North Sea. It's great. A trading town emerges. Again, it's a trading town. And again, starkly thinking from no history. Okay. Okay. And deep down, yes, we do have, you know, Bronze Age stuff, Iron Age stuff in the River Thames. It must have come from somewhere. But if we want to talk about history, not archaeology, let's use the right context here. No written history about Londinium. There's nothing, right? Lundio. Remember, that was the original name for London, Lundio, because we find out in one of those tablets the first mention of Londinium before about AD 50, Lundio, right? There's no tradition of a big thing here. There's nothing, there's no hill fort, whatever. There's no necessity to have anything here. If you got a crossing point before the Romans, it's fine, but there was no necessity to have a population center here, right? Okay, there were a few fishermen about, but there's no population center. Roma needed this. This was part of the Roman ideal, the Roman dream. Okay, this is evidence of can't really make it out, but this is sort of the context, the evidence for one of the bridges, right? The bridge, so piers, plinths, piers, and the thing is, what's happening is the bridge itself initially. There's all these piers, right? But slowly, these piers are being overtaken by land, right? So we do find these piers on land to excavate them, and this is what we've got. So a massive closing line, the final line with this week is that London was not inherited from Britain; it was imposed upon it. But I would more like to say that it was a necessary evil for both the Romans and the Britons. It was a necessary evil trading post. So if we forget about everything in Camalodunum, what was going on in Camalodunum, forget that, right? We forget about the conquest of St. Albans, right? We forget about that. Londinium was more of the Mayflower idea. It was more of a colony. It was more of a colony within a colony. It was more of a micro colony. And this is a place that we will be visiting a lot, more archaeological evidence. I just wanted to do this as a little bit of a start today, and as we start to get into the other stuff. But early London, first decade, we're ready for this. And then we can start then developing the rest of Roman Londinium, or Roman Londinio. So that's me done for this week. It's a bit later than I thought, but it's go earlier than we usually do. So that's 9:35, and the town needs an enema. Margaret.
Yeah, it was very interesting. I've heard of all the gates, the Ludgate, Aldergate, and all of those, but I've never ever heard of Cripplegate, and that looks like the most important one, where the fort was.
And there's a bit of nice Roman archaeological evidence there that I've covered it in my online series. We've what it is that where I would usually say that by 1750 there were still lots of Roman arches still standing in Britain, in like Exeter and in York, but slowly but surely most of the Roman gateways had been demolished in Londinium by that stage. But I think one or two of them were still open, but that's for another day. So yeah,
I like the old maps and the illustrations and things. They were very good.
It's a shame we didn't have a few more, but thank you very much. So thank you very much. Elvis has just left the building. Thank you. It's all going. It's all going. In the break, I went out to see my lambs, and they were all right. They were all right. So how was the sound been for the rest of this tonight?
Very quiet.
Quiet, right down.
All right, but you've been getting me, so that's the main thing. Right, good. Right, Rog, anything you want to say?
No, that's it. I'll wrap up now. Very
all right,
good.
Rog.
Good,
you're off for you, Rog.
Good illustrations. And
Yeah,
that one
were.
point of placement on the different parts.
I like that one.
Against the museum and stuff.
Yeah, I like that. That was a really useful one, because I'll tell you a little bit of a story, guys, right? Did I ever tell you the story that I met a friend of mine called Karen in London, right? It was the Hadrian exhibition in London, right? and he had loads of statues and stuff of his earlobes. Don't even go there, right? And she said, right, we've got to get to the British Museum. I'll meet you off a train somewhere with little son in the pram, right? First time I met Karen, right? And it was like, right, okay. And she said, right, make sure you bring a map. I'd only brought a bloody map of Roman London, hadn't I? It had the Roman wall on it, it had all the Roman baths on it, but it did not have the British Museum on it. And I can remember standing in the street, right, with her and the pushchair and me and the map, and it was like, and there was this guy coming along saying, "Why are you looking at a map of Roman London?" And I said, "Well, I brought the wrong map." And he said, "Oh, don't worry about it. The British Museum's just around the corner." So that was good. That was all
Okay,
right.
Carl, I'm going to sign off now.
Okay,
All right, then.
bye,
Good
Roger.
night, Rog.
Night,
See you
Dirty
all.
Rog. I'll see you next week.
Hi, Rog.
Cheers. Take care.
Night, Roger.
Ta-da.
Oh God,
And
that did my...
we're all paid up now, so fine, Carl. Mhm.
Oh, but I haven't received it yet, Rog, but I'll let you know.
Tomorrow, April the 1st, I said. Have
Oh, Oh, by the way, I've got an April Fool's video going out. I've got to complete it
All right.
tonight. So there you go.
Anyway, see you.
Good night, Rog.
Bye, bye.
Night, Rog.
Say hello to Canada.
Yep.
Hi, Canada.
Ah, yeah.
Right.
Okay. Au revoir.
He'll go in a minute. Night, Rog. Blimmin' hell, that was a long goodbye, wasn't it? Flippin' heck. Christ. Right. Will, anything you want to say, love?
Yeah, observations.
Good observations. I'll sit back and listen.
All roads didn't start in London, of course. The roads came from London to London from Colchester, from the Tri-Route area, which was Canterbury, Dover, Richborough, and the idea of London being a bridge between the strengthened southern part, and then that allowed them incursion into the northern part and supporting the Northern Army. That's one element. Second element.
We're doing well. I agree.
Right, the sketch of your bridges shows a flat bridge. Well, to me, the bridges could have been concave, even if it was wooden structure. The Romans haven't used concrete bridges for 200 years plus. Could have sunk concrete pillars, stone pillars, concrete pillars in the middle of the River Thames, and the bridges could have actually been slightly arched in order to allow for triremes and other large vessels, which the mast may not have been detachable. So they would have thought about that in advance. They'd had a couple 100 years to work that plan out, knowing that they were going to use the Thames as a waterway to feed from the southern area, knowing that they were already protected because they had strength in the Tri-Riparian area, which also brings into your Primigenia 22. And which
Yeah,
is
go on.
another element of Richborough, actually. So, that's it. Otherwise, yeah, pretty good. I've just looked up on Arthur Trust. There are some books in the 1800s which deals with Walbrook and some of the structures. And if you think, well, no, thinking about at what point did they actually cover over the waterways? It's got to be 1700s, 1800s. May not be much earlier than that, because of the brickwork.
Yeah.
And considering that somewhere there was an architect who must have written some notes who said, "This is where the plan is, and this is what we're going to do." And if I come up with a sketch, you'll be the first to get it.
I think it's like I think maybe you're right. Up until the fire of London, it's quite possible that a big chunk of like the Roman plan was still intact, because when you think about it, the fire of London in 1666 was more about the wooden buildings,
Right.
and when you think about the Romans demolished lots of bigger stuff. So we can blame the Romans for demolishing the basilica, probably the amphitheater, but some of the other stuff would have been still standing, like the the Roman city wall and all the gateways would have probably been still functioning in the 1666. But it's when 1666 comes in and Wren's saying, right, we're going to redo the city, and actually some of that Roman stuff is going to be good quarry and material, right?
Right.
So that's going to be good. That's going to be good stuff for the foundations. We'll bring in the rest, right? And then that's where we see the wholesale removal of Roman London, because it's probably, you can imagine it. I don't know if anyone's ever done an image like this, but you can imagine that it's almost as if, with all the wooden buildings removed, right, the only stuff probably still standing, other than some of the stone churches, is the old Roman city, right? And that would be a really nice reconstruction to see. It's just like, it's like everything's burnt. It's almost as if Boudica's been there, and obviously, you know, and you just got the stone stuff standing. That would be nice. You couldn't push your hand to doing that, Will, could you? A full-scale reconstruction of what it looked like the day after the fire of London 1666. Give it a go, Will.
Who knows, eh? Who knows?
Samuel
Hang on,
Pepys.
don't promise anything. Right.
No
Samuel
promises.
Pepys doesn't mention that river. He just talks about the River Thames in his diary.
Well, he probably didn't want us to know about the River Wall book because he had a canal barge in there or something. He just didn't.
Maybe it's been covered over by then.
It's all this big debate, isn't it? So it's all that big debate. Right, and again, I've got that image of a tiny snippet of the River Walbrook in my head, or maybe it's time travel. Andy knows what I'm talking about. We'll go over to Andy quickly, love. I can't hear him.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't find it switched on. Yeah, I have something in the. I can't remember whether it's the Walbrook or the Fleet, but I'm sure there's something. But I've been looking and I can't find anything. It just says it comes out from pipes, down and straight into the Thames, basically. But
there is a note on that of the exit of the Walbrook into the Thames in Wikipedia under Roman and Rivers of London or River Walbrook. There is a reference. I looked that up a little bit earlier. But there was something about the Bloomberg area when they were doing the excavations for Bloomberg about uncovering parts of the Walbrook
right
area.
I wonder if that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, possibly.
Well, the question is, did they uncover a part of the flowing Walbrook in the excavations? If that's the case, then that would.
Well, yeah, it'll be still contained at that point because that's not very far from there. Because that's where that building is built on the site of what was the Bishopgate bomb.
Oh,
that took that whole block down. So that's what they built instead on top of it. So it's kind of silver linings. So.
Hang on. Tell me more about the Bishopgate bomb again.
The Bishopgate bomb was one of the IRA bombs in the late 1980s.
yes.
Yeah.
I think 2 or 3 people were killed in that one, which was not their intention, as I understand. But I think just some people got caught up that shouldn't have been there. But whatever. They blew it up in the evening after everybody had gone, because the City of London in those days was just dead after about 6 o'clock in the evening. There was never anybody there.
Right. So what you're saying, the building was left a ruin for years, and then
no, it wasn't left a ruin for years. They took it down. It was totally destroyed. So they took it down and they built that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what they built there was that new one. That what's the
was there an old mint at Bishopgate by any chance?
What's that?
An old mint.
I don't know where.
The Royal Mint.
The Royal Mint.
The Royal Mint's at the river.
Near there.
Thames.
Yeah, that's near the Tower of London, isn't it?
Tower of London at the Thames, yeah.
So that's near there, but
yeah. The Royal Mint that you're talking about. You talking about Tower Hill? That's where the mint was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It obviously moved to Wales in 1967, I think, Lantrisson. So. Well, I should know. Michelle worked there for 25 years. So it was good. She there was like a 25-year sort of. She was still there, and she had a there was a 25-year sort of party type thing in the Vale Resort Hotel where all the football and rugby teams go. So we could use the swimming pool. We could use the gym. There was this party at night, and we stayed in this hotel. It was great.
Carl, actually, you can ask Michelle. I have a number of 2 shilling pieces, 1970s. Some I've got some blank planchettes, and some I have the coins with that have been cut, where they've been miscast on the die and where they've been stamped. I worked for Barclays Bank, and I used to do the payroll for the National Coal Board for South Wales, and I used to handle thousands and thousands of bags of coin in a year. So I came across a number of these coins, and I'm not sure what value they might have because I've never been able to value them. But I actually have florins with from the 1970s that are half cut where they've been mispressed, and I have some planchettes, blank planchettes that were in the coinage that slipped through the scanning process. I might have half a dozen, and I still have them. You should ask
It's all,
Michelle's opinion. Let me know.
no, I can tell you no. Some of them you're talking about hundreds. You need to go on eBay and list them and start off with a 20, 30 quid, and you'll get money for them.
Right. Yeah, well, I plan to keep them, but I'm not going to get rid of them.
I
But
think
Oh
the
well,
worst,
okay. If you
worth
don't want
probably
the
a bit
value,
more
then
than
that's
that.
fine. That's okay.
I'd
Are
get
they
them
half crowns? Do you mean half
no,
crowns?
2 shilling pieces, the
florins.
florin. 10p,
I,
actually 10p. When I
Yeah.
talk 2 shillings, 10p pieces, 1970s, new mintage, directly from the mint. I used to get, as I say, I used to deal with hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of coinage from the mint when I was doing the NCB wages, and we used to do £2 million a week, and a lot of that 100,000, 200,000 in coinage. And I used to go through bags and bags and bags.
So
oh,
so
those were the days.
Yeah.
that would have been in a little wood a little paper envelope, yeah.
We used plastic. They came in. Well, we used to do the coinage in the cloth bags. £500 in a cloth, £100 of
No, no,
£500 in a
no.
cloth.
When you're doing the payroll, it would be in a little like a paper envelope,
Uh,
yeah.
well, no. When I say I did the payroll, I handled the large amounts. Like a block, £100,000 worth was a block, 8 inches by 8 inches by 12 inches, £100,000 in a block of £5 notes, £10 notes, £1 notes were whatever. And I used to handle these 20, 30, 40 of them to make up £1 million or £2 million. And then the coinage came in bags. A coin bag was about 12 inches by 8 inches across. £500 £500 of coinage, and we used to give the NCB the full bag back. But on occasion, they give us the dud coins back, and on occasion, I used to have to break down some of the coinage and actually make up £5 envelopes. You know, they came in plastic bags in the 70s. They introduced they got away from the paper and they introduced the plastic in mid 70s anyway, 72, 73, somewhere around there. And I used to break down the big coin bags into £5 packages for the 10p's anyway.
Oh,
But
cool.
and then I came across them. So I used to collect coins, so I kept them substituted, paid from.
They are worth money. I know. I can tell you that for sure.
Yeah.
Right. Okay then.
Anyway.
Anything else? Anything else anyone wants to say before we finish?
No, it was really good. Thank
Good
you.
stuff tonight. Good stuff.
Good. It always is good stuff. All right then. Well, I've got a busy few days. Yeah. Of obviously Lambs, Nigeria. My book.
Nigeria.
Yeah. Well, this thing that
Film fest.
yeah. There's well, obviously the film festival thing that obviously I've got that I got the results of that for
Oh, right.
wildfire outbreak to see if I've won that. The Nigeria thing is that there's a Nigerian film that's come out, a Nigerian producer, as obviously, you know, I'm a UK actor, and also I've been in a Nigerian series called Meet the Other Boyjos, and I was an actor in it. I've done like a little sort of, you know, a speech that's going to be shown in the film, to sort of say, you know, best of luck with the film, blah blah blah. So that's going to be coming out. That's going to be used as well. So and obviously I've got.
Good.
Hopefully, I'm going to try and get myself well enough so for Thursday. For this meal reporting type thing for the newspaper. So yeah.
Well, thanks very much. Have a good night then, and
Yeah,
wish you all
thank
the best.
you.
It's all happening, so I'm going to say good night. So
Yep.
good night, Will. Good night, Margaret. Good night, Andy, and thanks for joining us
Right.
tonight. Thank you
Bye.
very much.
Bye.
Hello.
Take care.
Night,
Bye.
night, folks. Night, 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 night. It's all for the good of the country and the German Reich. There you go. Thank you, guys. I'm gonna need to lie down in a dark room now. I've got to get back to South Wales. Oh God, long drive. So, oh, I'm gonna look in the box. So let's have a little look. Nothing in the chat box 1. Nothing in the chat box 2, 3, 4, 5. Nothing in the chat box 6, 7, 8, 9. Nothing in the chat box 10, 11, 12, 13. Nothing in the chat box 14, 15, 16, 17. Nothing in the chat box 17, 18, 19, 20. Nothing in the chat box 21. Nothing in the chat box 22. Nothing in the chat box 23. Nothing in the chat box 24, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And nothing in the chat box 1. Nothing in the chat box 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, nothing there. Oh God, I can't. Right, nothing in that one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.